Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the July Norm event here in New York City. It's round number 2, and in this round I'm playing against the one and only Tani. If you don't know the story of Tani, do me a favor, watch this entire video. Don't click off of it just yet, and then look up my opponent. He's got a truly incredible, humbling story, and he is one of the most incredible prodigies, I would say, currently in the US. He already has one I am norm. He is trying to become an I am at like the age of 11 or something. I think he's either 10 or 11. So this was going to be a super tough test. But I lied about something, okay? And I lied about the fact that going into this game, I would not play the move e4. Now, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that I was lying at the time. I just knew that when I had prepared for Tani, I knew Tani played the Nimso, and he played the Queen's Indian, and I didn't know what Tani played against c4, but I anticipated that it would be e5 because, well, I looked maybe like at a couple of games briefly. But against e4, Tani is a Sicilian player, and when I looked in the database, I saw that he played the Taimanov Sicilian. In particular, he played this move order. I suppose a6 is not really a Taimanov, it's known as the Khan, but he plays the e6 Sicilian, and I decided before the game that I was going to play like Duda. Do you know what that means? No? Do you remember the first round of the candidates? No? Do you not remember what you ate for breakfast? Yeah, me neither. It's because it's 6 in the morning and I haven't eaten it yet. I was going to play the move bishop f4. I was going to play this move, which Duda played in the first round of the candidates tournament against Report, which is also the move that Report played against Caruana in 2021. And the idea is that you're going for the dark squares with knight b5, as well as knight d2, knight c4, knight d6. So black goes here, and then we trade. And the game and the candidates proceeded with c4, knight e7. No, I apologize. Actually, in that game, Duda went bishop d3, knight e7, and at some point played c4 and got like a totally crushing position. Because I think Report just blundered like this. So I was thinking to play like Duda, but I ended up playing, just playing like the main move, which has been played before maybe about 10 times. Now, here's something insane about this game, right? My piece of preparation, Tani has actually faced before. He faced this 2 months ago in Chicago Open against Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov. I'm not a magician. That game was in the database. That game went e5, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3, knight g4, attacking the bishop. And then they played like this, and Shabalov basically put his bishops out and then advanced on the queen side and won the game. And I was looking at this like, wow, this is like super effortless, you know, for white to play like this. And I basically spent about 2 hours building an entire file on this line, looking at all the different black responses. Now, Tani played the best move, rook b8. This is the best move, targeting the pawn on b2. And then here I defended. This is how Report and Caruana played this in 2021. Then Caruana played e5, and he went for this whole knight thing. But you have to play a5 at some point to prevent b4. But I digress. Tani played queen f6. Now, what's amazing about the move queen f6 is that it forces me to retreat all the way back to the home square, because this is hanging. And this was one of the moves that I had looked at. And the idea of putting the queen on f6 is that the knight goes to c6 when the pawn goes up to c5, and then the knight can go to d4. Now, I'm assuming Tani knew this. I'm assuming he patched up his repertoire after losing a couple of months ago, and he played this line, because he played it pretty quickly. So knight e7. And this was all my prep. So I'll tell you all, my prep went knight c3, c5, bishop e3, knight c6, and now long castles. And the idea of this is that if black continues the journey to the d4 square, here I can take the knight, and then I can play queen a4 check, and I can play queen takes a7, and suddenly there's a couple of things hanging. So that's really the idea there. Black can also play, for example, like bishop d7, which prevents queen a4 check, which during the game I thought he might play bishop d7, but this is around where my preparation ended. So 12 moves of pretty good preparation. Tani starts to think. Tani plays bishop d7. I'm looking at bishop d7, and I'm like, wait, what about knight b5? Because I'm just threatening to win a full pawn here. The only way he can defend that pawn right now is by playing e5, and that's a horrible move. That is positionally just horrible for black. This pawn becomes what we call a backwards pawn, when a pawn has no pawns guarding it and also can't move forward because the squares are controlled. I mean, I just thought over the long run I would give him a check, put my, put my knight here. He also can put his knight here in the future, but at least, I could maybe move out of the way. And I thought that if he counterattacks me, I'm just going to go to b1. Now, computer seems to think this is possible, which I just don't understand at all, because that just hangs a pawn. And like, now that I'm seeing this, I'm really perplexed. What if he takes and then checks me? I thought this was losing. Oh, I see it now. I have bishop c5. Oh, that's brutal. DC mate. Yeah, I actually had half a thought to play queen d2 and target this pawn. But I thought the move that I played during the game was also pretty clever. Queen b1. Defending my pawn. And again, he can't take this because his knight gets trapped. And then I'm going to play a3, just winning the knight on the next move. So I mean, I thought queen b1 was very clever. It turns out I can go queen d2 as well. Now I'm still threatening this. He plays rook b6. And I can take this pawn, but then he forks my pawn and my other pawn, so that's not any good. But I can play a3 and then try to take this pawn. But I just felt like that was a giant loss of time. Like, I thought that he would play bishop a4. He could also, at some point, lock my knight out, so I can't really escape anymore. So I don't know. But right now, I had to come up with a plan. Like, I have a good position from the opening. Tani doesn't look too happy. I've got to come up with a plan. Now, plan could be, of course, to give him a check and just remove his right to castle, by the way. Which I have to admit, I really did not think about that. I did not think about just checking him and going back. Probably should have, to be honest, now that I'm looking at this kind of an analysis. But I started thinking, what does he want, right? Like, what does he want? Well, he wants to develop in castle. Like, if you gave black 2 moves, he would develop in castle. So I thought here, I can try to expand some of my pawns. I thought the most natural expansion was the move h4. The move h4 has 3 ideas, actually. The first one is that I'm always going to pin his queen to his bishop. So, like, doesn't matter if he plays bishop e7. I'm also actually threatening to play check here and bishop g5 and win his queen, which would also kind of be very nice. So the other idea is rook h3. I want to activate my rook. Maybe I'll move my bishop and then I'll bring my rook here and we'll stockpile more pressure on the d6 pawn, right? This is another idea behind this move. And the third idea behind this move was something along the lines of bishop e2, g4, g5. So I wanted to like trap his queen here because it's just sort of out, just sort of like way beyond a safe measure over there on that side of the board. So I played h4, he played bishop e7, and now I thought, okay, we need to remove the knight. So I asked the knight what it's doing, okay? And the knight went away because if he had gone to c6, I would have taken this pawn, and naturally he did not want to lose a pawn, although the computer tries to say that this is a defendable position for black, and black gets some sufficient counterplay, but I think wait, no, not that move. Knight a5, apologies, knight b3. Interesting, honestly, it is quite interesting. We both really did not think much about knight c6, it seems. I mean, maybe he thought about it, but I didn't really give this thought this move much thought. He went here, and now, again, I have a big option. I mean, I can play g4 right away. The reason I didn't play g4 right away, I really didn't like queen f3. Like, maybe I'm completely fine, but I just kind of thought, like, why am I losing my pawns? I don't know. I really disliked the fact that his queen could get in. Then I thought about playing bishop e2, but the funny thing about bishop e2 is that I thought it doesn't prevent castling. Because, for example, if castles bishop g5, he takes my pawn. And even though his bishop is hanging, so is mine. Oops. So I was like, wait, bishop e2 just enabled everything I'm trying to stop. So then I thought, what about queen c2? And this is actually the best move, according to Stockfish. The point is that if he ever takes my knight, my queen goes to a4 immediately. So I prevent his counterplay right away. I'm going to a7. The other idea of queen c2 is that I defend the f2 pawn. So castles bishop g5 just wins, right? f2 is just always defended. And also, in my opinion, this defended f3. For example, something like this, queen f3, now I have bishop e2. So I'm covering myself in a lot of different ideas here, right? He thinks and plays h5. And this was actually a kind of a welcome sight. It prevents one of my plans, but now I have permanent access to g5. Now, I was sitting there trying to understand what exactly he was trying to do with his position, because to me, his position looked miserable. Like, truly, truly miserable. I mean, he's still trying to castle, right? He can't because bishop g5. So maybe g6 and then moving this. I was like, that's so slow. And again, I can still take this pawn. The computer wants me to take this pawn. It wants me to take and then return. And again, I just kind of couldn't bring myself to do that. I mean, like in hindsight, it's 2020, just grab the pawn and return. But I just really felt like it was too slow. And like if he castled and then I came back and then he got his rook to the open file, you know, this is in chess what you call seeing ghosts. Actually, that's not even possible because there is bishop g5 now. There is not bishop g5. Oh wait, no, there is bishop g5. Okay, then I don't know. Maybe queen g6 first, so there is no bishop g5, and then something like this, and then rook a8. This is what you call seeing ghosts in chess. I was like, why am I taking the a pawn? I'm just opening the board for him. You know, he's gonna get bishop f6 and all this. I'm not really too upset I didn't take the pawn on a7, though. I played rook h3. I thought rook h3 was a very clever move. The point is that I'm going bishop g5, and then I'm going to rotate my rook. So, again, you know, just like if he plays... I actually thought his best move was e5. To give me this, but open his bishop, bishop g5, queen g6, and then here I was going to play... I was going to take... and play like rook g3 or rook d3. I hadn't decided which. Or maybe here I was going to play rook g3. And then at some point bring over my rook. And I still thought I had, you know, maybe a slight advantage here. I was even thinking now to take the pawn because I need to take something. I thought e5 was his best move, but he played g6. And I thought g6 was interesting, but I thought it just let me go bishop g5. Now, of course, if he plays queen g7, I play rook d3, he will never defend himself, so he has to play queen e5, which I actually thought originally wasn't possible because I thought f4 won the game. It doesn't, because he could take my bishop, which I overlooked ahead of time. I can't take his queen, and then my pawn is hanging. I can't take his queen because I'm pinned. So a lot of tactics here, but I came up with a nice idea here, which was bishop back to d2. And the point I thought was to play bishop c3, but the other point I thought, even though he gets the right to castle, is I'm kicking out his rook. And I thought, look at me. I'm so clever, right? I'm kicking out his rook. He either goes rook c6 and gets his rook trapped, which he's not going to do, or rook b7 and he loses a defender of the d6 pawn. And then I will return, and I will win the pawn on d6. I thought this is just incredibly clever, right? Bishop a5 was my idea. You know, bishop d2 and back. Now, of course, I could have traded and then played like my rook over and then slowly built up a center. I just didn't really understand why I would let him get this position. I thought I was losing most of my advantage here. So I played bishop d2, castles, and I followed through with my plan, and now was the big moment. So I had two plans here. My first plan was rook e3, because I can't really put my rook anywhere else. If I go here, then I block my bishop. So rook e3 was my original idea. The point is that now I'd like to play g3 and then bishop c3 or f4. So for instance, if he plays take, and like knight c7, I play g3, he can take on b5, but then I take, and his queen gets trapped in the center of the board. So he can't really do that, right? Rook e3 was definitely one of the ideas that I had. I was thinking maybe he would even venture in here, try to harass my pawns. Like if I play g3, it looks like his queen is trapped, but it's kind of not. It's like very, very strange position. So I looked at rook e3 for a bit. Then I was like, wait a minute, what about g3? Like g3 and just the immediate threatening of trapping his queen. Just queen, like bishop c3, queen's trapped. Now I knew that when I played g3, my rook would be cut off from the board. And I was like, but I feel like the immediate payoff is there. Like, I feel like I'm going to win this pawn on d6. There's nothing he can do, right? If he goes back, I'm still going to go to c3. If he plays this e5 move, I feel like I'm happy. You know, I feel like I'm just going to go back. And I thought just visually this looked stunning. Like, I'm going to, you know, maybe play a 4 and chip away. So that was my idea. I played G3. He thought, and then he played Queen G7. And this is where I started realizing that actually I'm an idiot. I'm straight up an idiot. And we've been here before. This is the same story over and over again in any time that I get a good position. Tani here made a very good effort to also play faster. So if we go back, like maybe to this position, we both have maybe 30 minutes on the clock, 35 minutes on the clock. It's even. Slowly, he starts blitzing every move. Slowly, he starts blitzing. I'm the one thinking because I have to make some critical decisions. And in the combination of now getting lower on time and getting frustrated with his defensive resources is catching up to me because I realize that I can't take the pawn. Can you see why? I just thought I'm taking the pawn after G3. I just thought I was, because bishop A4. Deflecting my queen away from mate. And I apparently can play bishop C3 here, which I took a very brief look at. I don't understand what I'm missing here. Oh, I'm just missing the capture chain. Oh, this is very funny. I just forgot I could take this rook or something. No? What did I forget here? King C2? I don't know what I forgot, honestly. I guess I just miscalculated. I guess I got frustrated by the fact that I couldn't take the pawn on D6 and somehow just did not even fully calculate this move. Huh. Yeah, like look again, looking back at this, it's the combination of like getting lower on the clock, getting frustrated with some defensive resources. Maybe I only calculated bishop D6, rook D6, bishop A4, and I was like, okay, I just go here. But again, I'm like, okay, so he has queen G7, bishop C3, and he gives me this check. Now, we could make a draw here. Like, we could make a draw. Probably he would repeat, but I only briefly had looked at the move queen H6, and I just didn't think it was that great. Just from a distance, I had discarded it because I can either move my king out of the way, or I could play F4. Now, I was hesitant about F4 because I didn't like that my opponent has E5 with this. And then if I play something like rook H2, he can take, and all of a sudden, his knight is actually galloping into my position. Like, out of nowhere. Like, from rising from the ashes arrives the knight on D4, which was just an absolute idiot on the A6 square, and I thought, oh, this is very unpleasant for me. Turns out it's +2. I don't understand how it's +2. I just really thought that the knight getting back into the game was sort of like, I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't want to be pinned. So instead of being pinned, I came up with moving his queen out of the way and then F4, and now bishop C3 is coming back, and he can't do anything about it, right? I mean, obviously, what a clever idea by me. Look at this, bishop C3 is on the way. And then Tani played D5. And I went, oh, shit. I was like, what? This move had not been on my radar the whole game. Like, I had forgotten it was a possibility at all. And he had been probably cooking it up for a while. White's entire setup is designed to prevent a center break. Which is why we've been looking at, E5 as the only move. Because D5 is completely just weak, right? And he played D5. The point of this move is if I take, he can actually take, but it's better for him to take this first, to hit my rook first, and then he can take my rook. And if I take the rook, take the bishop, he takes my knight. Now, I can still defend myself here if I play rook H2. The point is that if he takes my pawn on C4, removing the defense of my knight, then I play bishop C3, then I play knight D6. But probably he would play D4. He would just shove the pawn forward. And suddenly it's really difficult for me to breathe. I mean, that pawn was a massive liability, and now it's a passed pawn stuck in my position, covering all my squares. Now, I thought I would... I didn't know what to do. Like, this move hit me so hard. And I tried to, like, make a blockade here. And I was like, I'm going to go E5, maybe... No. Tani plays now knight B8. Now the b5 knight has no target and has no escape back home, and it's threatening to get trapped. So I have to play this, and Tani blitzed all of these moves and blitzed this move, and now my rook is hanging, and I thought, what am I gonna do here? And here's the cherry on the pie, or the icing on the cake, or whatever. I thought for about 2 minutes here, and I played rook h2 because bishop f5 is met with bishop d3, and there's no e4 because I take. But there is e4, of course. And the young prodigy, who will most likely be a grandmaster in several years, finds it immediately. And the point is that I can't take because there's this move, which I did not see in my 2 minutes left on the clock and fighting for my life. And he opens up this beautiful counterattack, and I resigned. Yeah, wild game. So the story of this game is I got all my prep, and I was slowly, methodically outplaying my opponent. Mind you, he's fighting back very well and defending. And there was a couple of moments where I had to make critical decisions. At some points, I made maybe the second or third best one, but it wasn't the end of the story. But I got nervous again. And then I started missing a few things. Then I got frustrated. And then I ultimately missed things that were not still in my favor. I missed bishop a4, and I can't take the pawn on d6. And then I missed d5. And that's it. It's the same story every single time. I almost feel ridiculous even making this. One of the reasons I didn't want to even make a recap of this game, but I got it because Tani's awesome and probably will be a GM, and it's just amazing how fast he destroyed me the second that he turned the tables. From the move d5 to resignation was 10 moves. And actually it was already completely lost in about 4 or 3 moves. But yeah, for me personally, I mean, this is just ridiculous. What am I even doing? I mean, yeah, it's extremely frustrating to lose games like this time and time again. Going back to, since I started playing back in tournaments and making recaps, the amount of times I've had positions like this, good positions, just pressuring, and then everything falls apart, it's just ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Yeah, round 3 recap will come out in a few hours. I'm actually recording it right after I record this one. It will be scheduled to release in about 8-9 hours. And yeah, tournament keeps rolling right along, unfortunately. So we'll see if Tani can make his second I Am Norm in this event. He made his first one in the last time he played here. Yeah, I'll catch you in the next recap. Get out of here.